Hello, people of the internet. This is Ian Altnazar, the Freedom Astrologer, and I'm going to talk about Saturn in the third house today. And this is, it's not a comfortable position for Saturn, definitely, but for us to have a healthy life or a more positive life, let's say, it's good for us to know what this position does and what it means and how can it play out in your life, and as well as some guidelines or some actionable steps to do when you have this and you recognize what I'm about to share with you in your life. So, when Saturn is in the third, usually it means that somewhere deep within us, there's a place, and that place usually comes from childhood, from early childhood, early childhood environment. And something happened there in that environment or during that age where the things you said and the things you communicated to others were not listened to, or might even been put down, we can say that, or even ridiculed, or you could have been just ignored in general, or the thing you said and communicated could have been ignored. Now, why is this? Saturn is more of a difficult planet. Saturn is blockages. Saturn is a restriction. Saturn is authority figures, and older authority figures especially. And the third house is how we communicate, how we speak, we write. It could have been, obviously it could have been something you wrote and you showed it to the person, maybe your parents, maybe some elder, and they either ridiculed it, put it down, didn't care about it, or made fun of it. And when you're really young, really early in your development, you don't have the mental capacity to evaluate if that criticism is true, or if it's over the top, or if it's given to you from their own pain. So meaning from the older mentor figure's pain. And Saturn is also a planet of repetition. So very often this can mean that this wounding or this ridicule or this putting down happened many times. And when something repeats, especially when you're really young, you start believing it, and it goes into your head or mind, which is also the third house. The things we believe, or rather, the things we think about is the third house. The ninth house is the things we believe in. And if you're there really young, it's repeated, you start believing it, you start thinking about it yourself, you start thinking, okay, maybe I don't have things to say, maybe the things I do have to say are meaningless, there can even be a kind of a stutter. You can even speak slowly. You will probably think a lot about what you're going to say in advance. This is one big one with the Saturn in the third. You're going to think, especially if you're going to like a social situation, you're going to think about the things you're exactly going to say many times. And this is just one way it can play out. But one of the ways this wounding, if not taken care of, can look like later on in the world is how do I put this now in really clear words, is the pain is so great there within you that nobody listened to you. You've suppressed it because you're young, you don't know how to deal with it. And now you're growing older, maybe it repeats again, Saturn repetition can repeat again. But also the extreme of that pain can give you or move you towards the idea that everybody should listen to you. Or in other words, the pain of not being listened to in your early development has you going around and thinking and wanting, actually wanting is another one, wanting to desperately to be listened to. Now, you can be there and asking like, okay, so what's the big deal? I can go around and be and ask to be listened to. But if you have been in the real world, in the great human society, you probably know that there's there are some people who listen to you. Mostly there are a lot of people who don't listen to you or don't want to hear what you have to say, especially these days. And that can bring up and repeat that pain over and over again. Now, as you can imagine, this can lead to suffering, pain. You're going around, I want to be listened to, nobody listens to me, okay, pain. Basically, it's like a repetition of that childhood environment. Where was I now? So the pain can be pretty big with Saturn there, for sure, definitely. And it can be also suppressed. So you suppressed it so deep that you can't even forget about it. And now, when you're older, you go out into the world, it starts being shown to you. You go into teams and environments, and start working in teams maybe. And the things you say there, although you might think they are good things to say and good things to communicate to others maybe downplay them or not hear you or whatever it is in your specific case. Or the second part of this is you yourself can be so withdrawn. You can have this little bit of a shake even, and a fear of speaking in small groups and team environments. That and very often it's because of the fear of fear of saying something you might get scolded for, or be put down for, or ridiculed for. So in that situation, you think it's better to stay quiet, even if you think you have something to say, because the something you might have to say can be put down, and that fear is keeping you from saying that thing. Now, this can take many ways, but one of the ways it can go is go to extremes. You can start just like saying random things constantly, just desperately wanting to be listened to, or it can be, you can sit there in fear. And now comes the part where you can heal this, or move into a different direction. With Saturn, it's always about doing it purposefully, or taking purposeful action each day, constantly, slowly building that mastery. So the first one is for sure getting into those places and learning to speak there. And, having that fear in mind, having that pain in mind, it's okay to sometimes feel fear and pain and still do it. And, kind of go through your fear in that way. So now many things can happen there. In different situations you will be listened to, in others you won't be. That's where those situations where you won't be listened to will be extra painful, and you will have to experience that childhood pain at times. But moving towards those areas and those people who listen to you can be extremely healing, can show you that you actually have valuable things to say, you have valuable ideas, your mind works in valuable ways. So one of the best ways is to do your best to notice when you start doing it, instead of or in spite of that fear, you start doing it, and one group doesn't listen to your ideas, the other does. Move towards the ones that seem to have a better understanding of your ideas, and they seem to give you the space. This is in my experience has been extremely healing. And do your best, to stay clear of those other areas. So now, the second part is changing the belief. The belief starts to change when you start doing it, and people start listening to you, obviously, but it can still come up, and basically the second part is proving to yourself that you are worthy of being listened to. So most of it, because it's in the third house, and it's Saturn, it's in your mind. So the third house again is what we think about. So it's going on in your mind. Oh, maybe I don't have something valuable to say. Maybe something they will say I'm bad, or say my ideas are worthless, whatever it is. So that will, even when you start doing it, that will still carry on. So now you have to start switching that and paying attention to it, and basically putting different ideas there. meaning I can be listened to. I am worthy of being listened to. This is the place where meditation is extremely valuable, in my opinion. Also, audio meditations of literally saying, you have valuable ideas and you are worth being listened to. And I think the final, or not the final, but one of the pieces I want to mention is because there is a bit of a danger here of if it goes to the extreme polarity of one side is sorry, lost my train of thought, and it's when you start thinking about that everybody should be listening to you, and everybody should give you the light of day to hear your ideas. This is not the case. Unfortunately, this pain can be so deep that your desire to be heard and to be listened to is so great that you want everybody to listen to you constantly and all the time. But that's not going to happen, most likely. And you have to understand that this is the real world, so to speak. You're going to be listened to in one area, other areas and groups of people you're not going to be listened to, and you have to make choices and literally understand. This is the cold, hard, painful truth of it, that nobody, actually, in the grand scheme of things, nobody has to listen to you. Although that acceptance, the acceptance of that idea is quite painful. It's better to accept and acknowledge the fact, because that will give you the freedom to understand what is happening in your reality. Otherwise, you just be going around in circles and wanting everybody to listen to you. So another video done, another astrology type self-growth video done. I hope you got a better understanding of it. And if you have any questions about Saturn, if you have questions about astrology, write them in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel. I will be posting as much of these types of videos as I can. And yeah, thank you for listening.